All of those things were established from the Big Bang forward. And we'll go through some of the detail of what happened in these in just a minute. The very next cycle, carved on that rock, started 820 million years ago. 820 million years ago. And it started going through these same 13 steps. Each one of those steps taking 63.4 million years each. This one was 1.26 billion years each. This one's only 63.4 million years each. Yes?
A day to a day?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. And the answer is, creation has the deck stacked in consciousness's favor. We go from a day to another day. Okay? This whole cycle, 820 million years, fits very tidily into 1.26 billion, doesn't it? This whole cycle fits in that box very comfortably. Does that make sense? So we got all the way over here to this last light, and then we got another light. And this started a whole nother process. This has a name for its product. Mammalian cycle. Why? Because 63.4 million years ago, what happened? The first live births. Now back here, right at this line, individual cells started clumping together for cooperation for better survival. And then they evolved stage by stage by stage into more and more complex organisms. And when you go to study this on your own, because we're not going to drag you through all the detail, or we might as well just talk about the book, you know. It's better for you to study the detail on your own. But you will find that all the developments of individual cells into shell life, into fishes, into reptiles, into birds, and finally into mammals and then us, all of that went stage by stage by stage. It's not a coincidence. We're on a schedule. And it's provable by the historic record, the paleontological record. You have the center right here. The mastodons and what's called the Bernage. Yeah. What is it again? Beringia? Beringia Center. And you can go and confirm this for yourself. Here we go. This whole consciousness cycle had a way of doing business too. It's called stimulus response. All of this consciousness was building on a survival tool or a method called stimulus response. It's still working now. That's because we're still living in this 1.26 billion years. And those laws that were established then are still working. That's a level of consciousness, a foundation. Here, we built the consciousness of stimulus response and mammals. I see a whole lot of mammals out there. We're still living in this 63.4 million years. The next cycle started 41 million years ago. It's called the familiar cycle. Familial. It has to do with the families. Monkeys showed up 40 million years ago. right near the very beginning of this cycle. And what monkeys did is they brought along a consciousness, the consciousness of stimulus, individual response. Individual response. Down here we had hives and nests and swarms and schools and herds and flocks. And you've seen enough wildlife to know if you startle them, the whole herd, boom, off like a shot, right? The whole school of fish, the whole pile of ants. It's all stimulus response, everybody goes. In this case, though, in these stages, each one of them 3.2 million years long, the monkeys and their ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors built the concept of family. What's the difference between a family and a herd? The recognition of the individual. And it is definitely a survival tool. You're much more flexible as an individual, much more choice of how to survive rather than being one of the pack. Right now, I dare say, in our societies and world, there are a lot of people who would have you give up your individuality. Get in line, sit down, shut up, and become one of the pack. Don't do it. Creation has invested a lot into you attaining your individuality. Don't throw it away. Thanks. Okay, 2 million years ago, we started a new cycle. This is called the tribal cycle. Not so coincidentally, 2 million years ago, right at this line, Australopithecus showed up, the first tailless ape. A really distant ancestor of ours. But as we came through all these 13 stages, we went further and further toward Homo erectus and then Homo sapien, which showed up 160,000 years ago. Each one of these is 160,000 years. So 160,000 years ago was the beginning of this seventh day, and that is when Homo sapien showed up. We are on a schedule. Now this whole cycle was producing a certain kind of consciousness or a tool for survival, and that was similarities and differences. The mind. Here, we put down the tail and picked up the mind as a survival tool. The tail was a very useful survival tool down here. Down here, fangs and claws were good. But here, the tail, here, the mind. And the mind is a tool to look or notice the similarities and differences in things and in circumstances. Not to just react, but to decide. Okay? To decide. Much more powerful tool for survival. Then, 102,000 years ago, we started another cycle, the cultural cycle. This cultural cycle, had its own brand of consciousness. And this brand of consciousness was reasons. Now, it started off in the caves, way back here, 102,000 years ago. People huddled around the fire in front of the cave. And one guy eventually would become called the shaman, he came up with the reasons for things. He came up with the reason for rain, the reason for stars, the reason for the moon, the reason for fire. He had the reasons. If you really, really look at it, the basis of culture is shared reasons. Like an Islamic person, the reason he lives is for Allah.